In 2020, August, the 5th day, 5 men gathered together in a room, and this is what happened. Flint, dun, dun.
Is this
Mack
a Law
Flash
and
Five,
Order?
the documentary.
This is a Law and Order episode. Dun, dun.
What just happened?
It's a documentary, so I'm trying to like chronicle what we're doing.
right.
I marked the
Gotcha.
date, but I said it really backwards, like extremely backwards for no reason, and yet here we are. Here we are.
Note
This
to
is it.
self, François is not in contention to narrate my first documentary.
Unless you
He
wanted to
got
be
the day
very
right, though. We'll give him that.
He got the-
Yeah, it's written
One
on the
point.
bottom of the computer right here. I can see it. Welcome everybody to the Mack Flash 5. It is the top 5 documentary movies. You know what we do? We talk about our top 5 movies of a given category, one after the other, and then you get to watch the quiz about those movies later on. Today, top 5 documentaries. Gentlemen, get your engines revving because it's time. Matthew, what do you got for number 5?
Whoa.
Well, I think we're going to start with Andrew's number
Yeah,
5.
chose
it's
this topic. This is
Andrew.
my
I'm
topic.
sorry. I keep
Hold
forgetting
on.
the order.
We'll get it
It
in
was your
post.
topic, AB, for sure. We just talked about that. So, AB, you start us off.
So I chose documentaries because I think we were talking about documentaries when I chose it, and it's kind of weird because I'm not really a documentary guy. It's not something I seek out. But then as I was thinking about it and I was looking at my like physical media, I was like, I have an entire bookcase full of documentaries, and I'm like, I do love documentaries, but of a certain kind.
Yeah.
And you'll see the pattern that happens as I go through it. So my number 5 documentary is one I saw when I was in grade school. A friend of mine, we watched it at his house. I think it was his brother's. He had it on VHS, and it was my first real exposure to punk music. And that is from 1981, is Decline of Western Civilization by Penelope Saphiris. And so it is all about the punk scene in the States in the 1981 at the time. Had a bunch of the punk bands like Black Flag and the Germs, and trying to think who else is in it. Circle Jerks, Fear, X, and so I didn't really know much about punk music at the time. I was mainly into rap when I was in grade school, and so I watched this, and at the time I didn't really like the music, but I loved the aggressiveness. I loved the people going crazy in the pits and going crazy the shows, and like the singers were like spitting on the fans, and I was like, what? Like, what is this? Like, what is happening right now? And so I was super intrigued, and so that kind of was my first real step into the punk world, and really drew me in. It's a really great documentary. It really gives you a feel for what the scene was like and it's a really short scene within those years, those bands. And I think it's a great snapshot. And like I said, I don't really love a lot of those bands. Even when I watched it this week, I was like, these are not even now, they're not my favorite punk bands. It's like, even the one I do love, Black Flag, it's pre Henry Rollins Black Flag. And so I'm like, I don't love this, but man, it's a great little window into this scene, into this movement of like punk coming to the States and blowing up in this one area, which is really cool.
Nice. Very cool. What's the name of that again?
Is Decline of Western Civilization. And there's actually two. So there's 2 volumes of it. There's volume 1 and volume 2. And volume 2 is called The Metal Years, and it's also very good. This had more of an impact on me when I was a kid. So you can watch The Metal Years, and that one's really good as well.
So I get 2 things about that. One, Henry Rollins is going to actually make an appearance in one of my documentaries, but
Awesome.
It's not that documentary, which is fantastic. And number 2, I got a little story here, brief story about one of the first times I hung out with Andrew is like over 20 years ago, and me being heavily into punk and like hardcore music, and I was with a friend, and we had a mutual friend, still do, and so I was picking them up. I don't know where we were going, doesn't really matter, but I was known to play a heavy tune or two in my car. And the first time he got into my car, this was our first exchange, or at least of him listening to something I listened to. And he may have or may not have known the band at the time. It's kind of irrelevant, but I'm playing this really hardcore band named Sick of It All on the tape cassette or whatever it is. And he gets in and he's like, what the hell are these guys? Who are these guys? And because it was like really loud and screaming. And I remember that vividly as like when I first met him going, who's this guy? I don't think we're going to be friends. But it's funny because then we wound up going to their shows and we probably saw them a couple times together and we went to lots of punk shows together and stuff. But it was just that funny thing because you get that first instinct when it's a band either you don't recognize or know at the moment. And then you just go, I don't want this instead of listening to it. But then, obviously, so we hung out that scene. But yeah.
Nice. Punk music bringing friends together as it does.
Mm-hmm.
That's great. My number 5 then, it goes up to me and it's number 5 documentary. I've got it all printed out all nice this time. Look at that. I'm getting better at this. I know. It's like double-sided page.
Whoa, that's really typed out. You typed it out.
I typed it out. And it's not just copy pasted from Wikipedia. So, okay, give me that. Sure, it is. No, it is. Okay, so my just like Andrew said, I'm not the documentary guy. But here's the thing. But I am. So when I watch a documentary, I go, wow, that was really good. I should watch 10,000 of these. But then as soon as you walk away, you come back to the whole collection of movies and you go, well, no, not a documentary, something else, right? But then I forget how great they can be. And the first one that gave me that feeling of like, holy crap, documentaries can be cool. Like they can be exciting. They can be fun. They can be things that people talk about. It was Bowling for Columbine.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Nice.
Bowling for Columbine.
That's a big one.
It's a big one, and it was commercially huge, and everyone talked about it. And this is why I wrote it down. It's the one that like, you would go. I went to the theater and paid money to see a documentary that everyone was talking about, and then it made me go, "What is this thing? I got to go see this." And that's what we chose to see, and it was great. And then we walked out, and we were talking about it, and we were like, Marilyn Manson was in it, and he's super smart, and everyone's just blown away by that. So, is Bowling for Columbine. Michael Moore, concentrates his documentaries on a certain area, so. You could find that it gets kind of tiresome after a while, but it did lead to me watching Roger and Me, his first one, which is quite good, and the series The Awful Truth, which I really, really enjoyed as well. So
you ever checked out TV Nation? That was his first TV show series.
Yeah, it's good.
TV Nation.
Yeah,
he
wrote a book.
What?
He and his wife wrote a book called TV Nation, and then they did the series, and then Roger and Me came along, and then Awful Truth. Yeah, I was really heavy into Michael Moore. You're right. He can be a bit much sometimes, like an off-putting.
Almost like conspiracy theory, almost to the point of like, not that he is, he sounds like a conspiracy theorist almost.
But it's always entertaining. That's the thing. Like, even if I don't subscribe to everything that he like puts out there, it's always entertaining to watch, right? Yeah. Like what's the other one? Fahrenheit 9/11 or whatever.
11/9, yeah.
I didn't love that one that much, but it was still entertaining.
No, Fahrenheit 11/9, I believe is the other side, like the right wing side of answer to 9/11.
Whatever
yours is 9/11, but there's one
11/9
that someone I think did to mock his.
Fahrenheit.
I read one quickly. 11/9 might be about Trump by Michael Moore, but it might be something.
It's Trump and the Flint water.
There you go.
Oh, so it's newer than
it came out last year.
Okay, because I know somebody did a one, like, the thing with him is he's the scapegoat, right, for the right. So he's the left. For the longest time, it would be like, oh, you're just like Michael Moore. People would just dismiss all of his, like when he did Sicko about the
that was great.
Medicare and all that. And people just, as soon as they heard his name, it was like, I'm not going to listen to you. You're a crazy leftist. And he became that poster child, but then he kind of went away. He's got another one that I want to check out called Where Should We Invade Next, which I haven't seen that one. Like, and it's all about basically them going and just invading countries, which is what they essentially do, right? So I mean, good topics for him for sure.
Yeah, and way to make an impact.
Were you living in Windsor when you saw it, Francois? At the time?
that was back in Ottawa. Bowling for Columbine.
That would have been like 02, 03.
Yeah, no. So I was in Ottawa.
In high school.
Ottawa.
Yeah,
2001.
We're in it.
Okay,
Windsor's in it.
It's
Okay.
featured.
Windsor's
There's a lot
in it, and-
so for people who lived in Windsor and saw it, they're like, "Oh, that's my hometown," in a commercially, worldwide famous documentary. To the point where even a couple of people from my high school are in it. It's just they don't get interviewed or anything. It's just B-roll. But I was like, "Hey," and
Well,
one of the things,
I
great
remember
things about
watching it. I remember watching it in the theater and going, "Windsor, awesome! They're going to talk to somebody. Oh, those people are from Sarnia. Okay."
Oh yeah.
It was weird.
You know what's crazy about that? I remember I was like, it's 01 or I was in grade 9 or 10 at the time. And I remember that was like one of the first DVDs that like we all traded was that movie. That was the one that like made its way around high school where people are like, borrow this, watch it, borrow it, gave it to someone else. And then, so I remember that's like the first foray of documentaries. Yeah. It's fun. That's a good one.
Yeah, it's a great, and then I really enjoyed it, and that's what it was. It showed me that documentaries can be like genuinely interesting, not like, well, that's interesting because I learned something. No, like not only did I learn something, but I learned it in a very interesting way, and you related to me. Like I said, the whole joke about Marilyn Manson was true, though. It was double reveal. It was one, what he said was super intelligent, and two, you got to see like behind the curtain, you get to go, this guy that everybody hates, and like he's orchestrating this entire thing. You know what I mean? Like, look at how smart he is, and I love that. It's great. Yeah. Bowling for Columbine, and also I want to add that not once in this entire thing did I say bowling for soup, which I said 1,000 times today talking to my wife, and she's like, "You mean bowling for Columbine?" I'm like, "I am going to say that tonight," and I did not. So thank you very much.
Yay.
But you're listening to them in your ears, though, aren't you?
I had to just to get it out of my brain. All right, Matthew, what is your number 5 documentary?
My number 5 is probably the first documentary, at least I remember seeing. It was in 1996, and my dad took us to the Ontario Science Museum, I'm pretty sure, in Toronto. And there they have not just an IMAX theater, they have an OmniMax theater. Mm-hmm. So that's the big dome-like curved screen. And the movie we saw was called Special Effects, Anything Can Happen. So it's a documentary about special effects. It's only 40 minutes long and has been stuck in, and will forever be stuck in my head as one, not the greatest movie I've ever seen, but certainly an eye-opening experience towards, movie magic. It's directed by Ben Burtt, who was the sound designer and then later editor for the Star Wars movies. So we got a lot of inside information about, the history of special effects. Two big things about this movie that were mind-blowing were, one, they reshot or redid the biplane sequence from King Kong as if you were one of the pilots, and you go through and King Kong swinging at you, and it looks amazing. You eventually shoot him down and he falls to the city street below, and it's terrific. The other thing is they either reshot or redid the opening shot from Star Wars in order to make it work for OmniMax. So in Star Wars A New Hope, you see the blockade runner come over and the Star Destroyer following. Like when you saw that in the first time in theaters, it's like, whoa, something's coming over my head. In this dome screen, it literally did. And it was phenomenal.
Cool. Wow.
And
that would have been really cool.
It was really cool. And basically because of the shape of the screen and where you're sitting, it's like a planetarium pretty much. So all of the camera movements make you feel like you're moving. And, for some things like that, it's amazing. But even just walking through like the Lucasfilm warehouse of props and stuff, you feel like, whoa, this is great. Oh, I know that. Oh, I know that. Oh, I know that. And it really was. I mean, it came out in 1996. And what else came out in 1996 was the trailers for the Star Wars special editions, which were coming out in 97. So that plus this really made me like, oh, I have to see those movies. It was probably the first point where I was excited to be introduced to Star Wars.
Nice.
Special effects, awesome. Anything can happen. And it's only number 5 because I've only seen it once and it's not available on physical media at all.
No one knows it exists.
Exactly.
It's a rare
I'll
gem.
find it for you. I'll find it for you tomorrow.
Movies? I want to see the person, the people answer the question on the quickie on that one.
That's just
this will be like
Oh, I'm just sorry. I'm just saying that you saw that in '96, and then
Yeah.
like special. Like imagine now kids seeing like if they were now, it'd be insane. I mean VR and everything else, but you just
Yeah.
saw that in '96 and it blew your mind. I'm like, that's like 25 years ago.
It's insane how
Yeah.
far it's gotten for sure. Oh my god, that's great. That's awesome. All right, some weird Omnimax. I'm always a big fan of like movie enhancing structures. So it's like 180-degree screen or 3D, or we're gonna blow air in your face while this is happening. Whatever it is, smell-o-vision. I'm behind it.
Tickle your undercarriage.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sure,
Oh.
sure. Oh, wait,
Cup
is
jiggle release.
that a thing?
It is now.
It's gonna be. Scott, what do you got coming in at number 5 documentary?
Okay, so for me, it's like we were talking about. I'm a big documentary guy. I love documentaries. So anything to learn, any book I kind of read is really like nonfiction, biography, sports, things like that. So what I wanted to do, there are some very, very, very good documentaries that have blown my mind through the years that I've seen once and said that is fantastic. But I kind of picked the 5 documentaries that I go back to that kind of express a little bit about my personality. And mine is very similar to AB's number 5 in the fact that it takes a subject that you are a fan of, his being punk music, mine being fitness, and extrapolates that by focusing on stars of that industry. And my number 5 is 1977's Pumping Iron.
I knew it. I knew it. I knew where you're going.
Who knew an
Arnold
art-
is numero uno.
Who knew an Arnold movie would make this list?
Oh my god,
Oh, it's amazing.
I love
I have that
Pumping
movie.
Iron. Pumping Iron is honest to God. If you're an Arnold fan, I know AB is. I myself am an
Yeah.
Arnold like mega fan. He is the man. And if you want to see young Arnold at his most arrogant, at his most egotistical, it's him competing for his 6th Mr. Olympia. And that's what it is. It follows the world of competitive bodybuilding before it really blew up in the 90s and certainly in the 2000s. This is the 70s as well, when Arnold ran roughshod. He has won 5 Mr. Olympias. He's competing against a young upstart, Lou Ferrigno, who you know from Hulk fame, and it really follows a lot of guys in his camp as well. And it's just, there's not much I can really go on more about it other than the fact that it's just a fun movie diving into it. It is Arnold giving us really a glimpse into his psyche. He's cranked up to 11, almost like a wrestler. Some of the stuff he's saying is you know, it doesn't age well. It's chauvinistic and egotistical and stuff. But if you like Arnold and you know what he's about and you like that macho alpha world, it's a very fun watch. So of my 5, this is probably the documentary I've watched the second most. It's one that I'll just put on in the background. I think I watched it twice during quarantine already, just because we were talking about Arnold and I just wanted villain Arnold. So for me, for fun, for a dive into a world that I like fitness, I like working out. Certainly not to that level. That level of dedication is something I can never achieve. But I will always go back to 1977's Pumping Iron.
That's awesome. Pumping Iron.
Legit, I have no interest. Like obviously, like Scott said, I'm a huge Arnold fan. I have zero interest in bodybuilding. I have zero interest in fitness. But that movie is fun as hell. Like it's so great. And especially, you know, after I read his autobiography, it enhances it even more, right? Because you get like his backstory behind the backstory. So Pumping Iron is the backstory of the Mr. Olympia stuff, but then you get him talking about his motivations behind the backstory in his autobiography, and it makes you want to like watch it even more because you're like, holy crap, like you see his drive, and
the drive is incredible.
Like it's great. Like he's awesome. Love
and again,
Arnold.
and you see little things of like being a fan of sports where it's him and Ferrigno are working out and Ferrigno's working out first, and Arnold comes in with digs and giving them tips, but they're competing, and then gives them a wink at the end when he beats them, and you're just like, oh my god, this is unbelievable. I eat this up. So yeah, Pumping Iron is it's just a fun watch. It's just a fun documentary into a weird world.
I've always found that I'm not, as AB said, you know, nothing to do with bodybuilding, whatever, but like I'm not, you know, everyone knows I'm not a sports fan, but I love me a good sports documentary. So I could see myself getting into Pumping Iron as well because of
I think you'd enjoy it. It's
there's
fun.
lots. It doesn't take itself too seriously, and like 30 for 30s, I could have done this whole list on the ESPN documentaries. They're incredible. But Pumping Iron, you can honestly, it's one of those ones you say you can turn your brain off and just enjoy it and enjoy meathead frat bros led by Arnold at his most broiest, and it's super yeah. Oh, it's great. Arnold is numero uno.
Cool. Mike, let's round off this top 5 and number 5 list with yours.
I was just thinking, if you walk to my documentary shelf, you would not see a sports film. You might see an air guitar competition. You might see some. You'd see some LARPers. You'd see a lot of things like that, but you would not see a sports documentary. Actually, most of mine are going to either fall under, when you walk my shelf, political, some music, and mostly tragic documentaries. And so my first one, number 5, is the tragic tale of Timothy Treadwell in Grizzly Man, which is such an epically amazing / depressing story. And if you don't know it, it takes place essentially over 13 summers, directed by Werner Herzog, who does the narration, which you may know from various things, I think Mandalorian and such, but he does some directing. And it's not really his footage, though. Although he goes and interviews people, a lot of the footage is from Timothy Treadwell, who over 13 summers goes to Alaska every year, or did, and to sort of live with the bears, or as he thought, and I genuinely think he thought, protect the bears. What he thought he was going to do, I don't know. But it's just one of these tragic stories where you watch it and you go, this guy really wholeheartedly believes what he's doing. And then there's these moments where you go, oh, he's nuts. And then there's these moments where you go, oh no, he really, cares. And it's one of those train wrecks. You just watch it and you can't turn away. And the whole time you're going, I know what's going to happen. I know what's going to happen. Because in the first minute you see his lifespan. It gives one of those, born whatever, died whatever, right? It says it in the first minute, it shows it, so you know what's going to happen, but you don't really know what's going to happen, and you can't turn away. It's just I don't want to say a good watch, but you just can't turn yourself away from it. And so, and again, like a few people mentioned, some documentaries you can't go back to, and this isn't one I necessarily go back to like, this is going to be great, but
no, I hope not.
But I can go back to it and watch it through and go, oh man, I appreciate that all over again. Even though it's not one of those, I'm going to put this on for a fun afternoon. It's just the way Herzog shows it and talks about him. And he's got a poetry all to himself, the way he describes things. Werner does.
He's got a great voice too.
Yeah. So that's my number 5, Grizzly Man.
So is he like, I don't even know what that is. Is he like a Bear Grylls, like Wild Man?
Sort of.
He's all about bears. He's all about bears, and he wants to go and
okay. So his specialty is just bears, though.
But the argument is he doesn't really have a specialty. If you ask me, he's just a guy.
He's just
who
a
thinks
dude.
Tiger King.
He thinks, in a way,
he thinks he can communicate with the bears.
He's protecting them, and they're listening to him. And I think what he was lucky for 13 summers until he wasn't. Right, and that's essentially the documentary. Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's you go for that ride knowing. That's the thing. It's going for that ride.
Yeah.
Knowing what's going to happen.
And the whole time though, you're like, well, maybe not. No.
That was like me watching The Last Dance going, I don't know, maybe they lose this game.
Maybe they lose. Maybe Michael Jordan won't take something personally.
No. Maybe he'll trip. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
Exactly. Oh gosh.
Let's move on to our number 4 on that note.
All right. So this came out, I guess looking at the year, it came out a long time ago, but it doesn't seem that long ago. And I could not wait to see this. I had heard about it. I had read about it. And it was about one of my favorite groups of all time. And so I actually purchased it. But was the first time I watched it, got it home, and I'm not going to tell you who directed it. I'll tell you who directed it at the end because it's pretty crazy. But that is Beats Rhymes Life, a Travel of a Tribe Called Quest from 2011. And so this is all about the rap group Tribe Called Quest, and it gives you the history of the band, and it follows the band throughout their success, and then very much chronicles the breaking up of the band, right? And you witness firsthand them actually fighting, like physically fighting, and like their internal struggles as a group, and like it really really follows them and digs deep into them as people, and I really like that it also doesn't take sides. You can kind of take sides, and you can kind of see who is almost at fault, and you can kind of pick and choose, but it also doesn't make it doesn't really dictate who is the bad guy in the situation. But I really love it, and you can see on here the like this title, the picture on the front here, it has a lot of animations in this style throughout the film, and like the title sequences, and then there's all these different animated sequences, and they're really, really cool to go along within the music, and I really like that, and it interviews a ton of groups that I love, and so when I watched it, I'm like, man, that was great. And then I looked at like who directed this. It's directed by Michael Rappaport.
Sure.
I knew
The
that.
Michael Rappaport. Yeah. I was like, I knew he was like big into the New York scene, and like,
I know he likes rap. Yeah, I knew that.
But it's the only movie he's ever directed. It's the only thing he's ever like directed as the director, and I just was like blown away. I'm like, man, kudos to that guy. Like, and like obviously he was tight with all these guys that he got all this access to them, and you hear him talking to the guys and talking to the people he's interviewing, and obviously like they all like him, like they all give him full access, and not just full access, but they're very open to him. They're very open, and they're very transparent, which I so obviously they trust him.
Well, I don't know if you know or not, but full circle here, he's really close in the music community with a lot of people, and he's one of his really, really good friends is Toby Morris from H2O, the hardcore band.
Oh yeah.
And they're like buddies, like they hang out, and he hangs out with a lot of people. Like he's pretty into the music scene now, even though he's a hardcore singer. He knows a lot of those people in that community, and so they're probably running a lot of those circles, right? Which is great because he has back sort of stage access kind of thing, right?
Yeah. So that's my number 4, Beats Rhymes Life.
All right, so from punk to hip hop. So your next one, I'm expecting some sort of metal band or pop music, K-pop, maybe some K-pop.
Yeah,
a little K-pop.
Baby metal. It's all about baby metal.
Baby metal.
I'll allow it. All right, coming in at number 4 for me is one that I knew was going to make my list, and it ended up just falling into number 4. Director Morgan Spurlock. I don't need to say anything more. Mr. Super Size Me. Is it?
I feel like we've worked together. I have them like all beside me as you name them.
Okay, that's so funny. Is it on your list though? Is it? Do you have it? Okay, perfect. Well, then let me dive in. No, it was a sensation. It was one of those again, and sensation is the right word. It's a sensational movie. It's meant to have that effect on you, to go, hey, look, this is really impressive. And this guy to the point of saying, I'm going to feed myself McDonald's for 30 days, right? I like, you watch the documentary, you've seen it, you haven't seen it. It led to actual physical change in the world where, you can't get your fries supersized anymore. Damn you, Spurlock. And it led to an amazing series called 30 Days, which is the same concept where he explores different aspects of social life, and himself goes through 30 days or has people. So he'll trade, he'll have people trade households. So a very, a conservative household will trade, partners or husbands, let's say, with a gay household. And so have them live for 30 days and sort of, you get the feeling of the documentary. So that series ended up being great. And there's even 30 Rock, Super Size Me has 30 days. Super Size Me even led to a comic book. There's a 30 days. You can watch a Super Size Me comic book. It's basically cautionary tales about health and obesity in America. I read that today.
Did you know that there's actually a Super Size Me 2, and it's all about chicken? Yeah,
I read about that today, and I have not seen it, so I'm glad to find that out, because I've tried some other of his documentaries as well, like
Osama bin Laden. Where in the world is Osama bin Laden?
I haven't seen that, but I saw this. I may have seen parts of that, but the sponsorship one.
Oh yeah, with all the logos.
Yeah, and that's the whole like
Yeah,
the
yeah.
premise is to
Yeah.
sell sponsorship to make the movie,
Yeah,
so the movie's about
that
sponsorship.
one was.
I-
Yeah.
But the concept's amazing.
Yeah.
I love that he gave himself rules. I love that if they ask him if he wants to supersize,
Supersize,
he
yeah. I
has
remember
to
that.
do it.
Yeah.
And
I
so
saw that
like
one once.
27 days in, right? They're like, "Do you want to supersize?" And he's like, "Oh,
Yeah.
yes."
Yeah.
Like,
I mean,
oh man, hilarious.
what's amazing about that is watching the doctors go like,
What are you doing?
stop,
Scott,
just
stop. You can't stop doing
stop.
this.
He's like,
You're
"I
like
can't."
literally, well, like he was literally like destroying his liver,
His
Yeah.
liver.
like an alcoholic. It was crazy, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that was a huge movie for me when it came out. I mean, it was the documentary that I didn't ask for, but that filled a void because I was reading Fast Food Nation at the time, that book, which is sort of parallels that as well as the farming industry and vegetarianism and stuff. And that was about the time a little after I became a vegetarian. And I really wanted a Fast Food Nation documentary. And then they made that into like a fiction, it's like a movie.
Weird
Like
movie.
it's,
Awful.
yeah, which made no sense. So they made this, and I mean, it's not the same, but it was good enough. It was like, okay, this will do. And I've read his book and stuff. So
Yeah.
But
Yeah. So there you go. Super Size Me.
And I was gonna say it's very similar to Icarus in the fact that you see a documentarian who does things to themselves to measure the effects, whereas in that one he takes steroids and he measures in a competition. But no one has achieved it better than Morgan Spurlock did with fast food. That's the absolute mecca of a documentarian putting themselves in it, short of being in a war zone and that. But like what he did to his body for our, I don't know, enjoyment or knowledge is like, it will not, I don't think will ever be touched as an achievement.
You know why? Because everyone has had McDonald's and
Exactly.
not everyone's had steroids or been in a war or whatever.
Yeah.
So it's like,
You're absolutely right.
I even if I don't eat it, my uncle, my aunt, my mom, my brother, somebody I know eats McDonald's. So yeah, great movie. Great movie.
Yeah, good choice.
That's it. Matt, what do you got for number Quattro? Is that what we're on?
Yep.
Yeah, number 4.
Well, for my entire, I was fearing that my entire list would just be documentaries about movies or, movie making, essentially. Because I've got quite a few.
Like a certain music guy.
But
It is what it is.
unlike some other people in our group here, I don't have a documentary shelf. I do have one small area that has like 3 of them in there. So I was like, okay, it's going to be those 3 and then 2 others.
Like a bottom drawer.
Yeah, almost. And then even though I was thinking, it's like, oh, there's got to be something else. And I came across a documentary I've seen more than any other, but it's number 4, more or less because of the way it's made. My number 4 is Hitman Hart, Wrestling with Shadows.
Awesome. Let's talk.
Oh
Now, as far as wrestling is
fans.
concerned, Bret Hart is my favorite wrestler, and I mean, after he retired, after he left, even after he left the WWF at the time, I was like kind of down. Now the movie was about like a film crew wanted to, document his life as a wrestler for a year, and it's one of those movies that or documentaries where you set out to tell one story, but it ends up being something else. Icarus is one of those as well. It's about steroids, and then it's about hiding this Russian doctor. Hitman is about him working for the WWF, and it was going to be, his career there. At a midpoint in the movie, we discover Vince McMahon wants to let him go, and now he's going to have to jump companies and start wrestling for the WCW. And at a certain point, Vince is like, okay, now we need you to lose your last match so you can, give us the belt, and then you can go to WCW. I don't want you showing up on WCW TV with my belt. I mean, Bret wasn't going to do that anyways. But it's one of the main things about the movie is it's about how wrestling, even though is scripted or predetermined or whatever, once you get in the ring, anything can happen. There can be an injury that calls a match to a draw, or they decide in the ring, it's like, my arm's broken, we got to end this now, as a count out, or you got to pin me or whatever. The ending of Hitman Hart ends with what's in the world of wrestling known as the Montreal Screwjob, where him and Sean got into a match, and Vince decided, I got to get the belt off of Brett. So Sean, we're going to have you throw Brett's own move on him, a submission hold. And when that happens, the ref is going to call the bell and we're going to end the match. And we're not telling Brett. So you can see that happen on the pay-per-view. It happened live, and you can go back on the network or on a DVD or however you want to watch wrestling. And it's there. It happens every time. They've never, removed it out of controversy. But you can tell Sean flips him over, puts him in the hold, the ref rings the bell, and everyone turns and goes from wrestling character to like, oh, are you fucking kidding me? Kind of an attitude. Yeah.
Wow.
And it's interesting because it's also one of those, clues or, conspiracy theorists kind of think. I will never, ever, I don't know if I'm ever going to meet Bret Hart. He does conventions sometimes, and I'll never, ever say it to his face. But there are clues within this movie that maybe Bret was in on it too. And that it's what, in the business called a work. He was in on it. And it's just an amazing, it's just an amazing ending to the match. And
Never in wrestling.
And, it's like, what better way to end this movie? You getting screwed out of the title.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't think, I'm fairly certain he didn't know, but, it's just one of those conspiracies where there are certain clues. Now it's number 4, even though I love it, there's so much editing going on in this documentary where you can see things are going one way. Like they show matches happening and then they go backstage, and I know, and people who like wrestling enough can tell, oh, that's from a different day. They're showing crowd reactions from different matches. So if you know enough about editing and if you've seen these matches, you can tell, oh, that's a crowd reaction. And you can see the signs and the t-shirts. They're from different matches. So it's very heavily edited. Still a great watch, though.
Interesting.
So is there another Bret Hart or Hart family documentary? Because the whole time we're talking, I've seen a Hart, all about all the Harts, and it's not that, I don't think, though, right?
He settled his differences with the WWE. So there's been, I can count them on my shelf. There's 1, 2, 3, 4 other Bret Hart documentaries.
Oh, because I'm thinking one on the whole family then, and the dad especially and stuff.
Probably
or
a
something.
lot.
Well, they're all featured in this as well.
Okay, because I've seen one and that was good. I was trying to think the whole time it was that one or not, but
it could have been.
It's still real to me, damn it.
No, the stuff, and in Wrestling Shots, the stuff that they go to is Calgary Home, and the dungeon is the best part of the movie. That's the best stuff with the dummy and Stu's just stretching everyone. It's the best stuff.
Yeah.
That's good. Scott, you got your number.
No, I'm
4?
gonna piggyback off that. It was 2 of my favorite loves. Honestly, if it's not wrestling, it's something else. And this might be higher on other people's list. I wonder. But it's something that it's a documentary that I rewatched twice. Once when Disney Plus came back, and then again recently for this, just to have it on in the background. And it's a documentary. It's the only one I believe that I have that's based on films and a film saga and a series. And for my money, the biggest and best saga of all time. And it's 2004's Empire of Dreams, which is the documentary of the Star Wars saga. So there's nothing groundbreaking really about it if you're a Star Wars fan. There's a lot of the stuff and it runs 2.5 hours on Disney Plus. And I believe from what I read, it's more of an extended version that wasn't released fully. They've added a lot of more stuff in it too. But it takes a lot of the clips into it, and it takes this, and it takes a lot of most of the things the filming of A New Hope at the time, and all the changes that Lucas undertook with it, and how the sounds and the visuals and this all came together, and Kirshner coming in for Empire, and where they wanted to go, and this, and what happened with Jedi, and all the changes, Revenge of the Jedi to Return of the Jedi, and all this stuff, and what the saga means to everyone. And it uses pretty much everyone who's ever been involved with the original trilogy saga is in it, from Ford to Hamill, Fisher, Daniels, beyond. And it just chronicles all that. And I mean, if anybody's with Star Wars, is probably the one movie franchise that's been covered the most over the course of the years, with a multitude of books, biographies, stories, everything else. But again, I just picked this one here because it's my favorite saga of films. It's a very big watch, but it encompasses everything. and just for the fact of how great it is, and watching it is an incredible watch if you're a Star Wars fan. I put Empire Dreams is my number 4. Just again for encompassing the entire saga and everything else. It's definitely a much watch for anybody who's even has a passing interest in Star Wars.
It's terrific. The first time I saw it was it first premiered on A&E, and it was edited.
Feel like that's right.
It was edited for TV.
Yeah.
Sure.
So it came out as a special feature when Star Wars hit DVD, and it was on there. I was like, "Oh, this is terrific!" And I put it on, and I saw much longer interviews and footage. I was like, "Oh, this is really great! I'm so happy this is here." I didn't know it was on Disney Plus though.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I think the A&E, or I saw it on YouTube maybe 10 years ago for the first time, and then now it's back and it's like $240, honestly. But it's the perfect documentary in the fact that it goes into filmmaking and this and what sound means for films and the music, the John Williams score. I think John Williams on that saga of films is the greatest anybody has ever performed on any medium of business ever. And like how it goes through, 20th Century Fox and their distribution of the film. It's the perfect documentary because it encompasses Hollywood, fandom, the stars, the filmmakers, everything. It's all served on a platter for you with a bow of the greatest saga ever told.
Yeah,
Nice. Well put.
Absolutely.
Well put.
I'm down.
Yeah.
Mike, what do you got at number 4?
I have probably the happiest of the documentaries on my list, and probably the geekiest. And that's from someone who has documentaries on Scrabble, spelling bees, Lord of the Rings. So that's saying something. That is, and this is the inverted cover. There's a cover on both sides of this DVD. So I took the cover off and flip
Phenomenal one.
Yeah.
This is the better cover. This is the King of Kong, a fistful of quarters. And
I'm just gonna do this one. I'm just gonna do this.
Yeah. So my thing with this one is it's a whole lot of fun, but it's so aggravating to watch as well. And I'm sure this will come up again later. But just a couple things I want to say for those who don't know. It's the whole premise of the thing is that it takes place around trying to compete for the Donkey Kong like arcade game Donkey Kong classic record. And there's this one guy named Billy Mitchell, who has the record, and he's him and his hair,
and his fucking hair.
Yeah, he's had this record, right? 874,300 points. He set it in the 80s, and no one's beaten it. And it's basically about the underdog who comes in and he actually beats it, but he has it on tape. And so it's Billy and his lackeys at this place called Twin Galaxies who don't want to accept the score, and it's just back and forth with that. Yeah. But it so pulls you in. And you don't realize that you care that much about the Donkey Kong score, but you do. Yeah. You really do. And you're watching and you're like, oh, did he tamper with the board, the microchips? What could that be? Like we know what that means at all. Like other than smashing the board, I don't know what that would do. But and you just watch all these lackeys and you're kind of watching these men really at its core, just holding on to a moment, right? Holding on to this moment from the 80s where it's like, especially this Billy, right? This is his shining glory. And what he does now is he makes like a hot sauce or something, right? But it's like, oh, this is my thing. And all my friends around me who think I'm like the god because I have this record, they're going to help me make sure this other guy can't beat me. And anyways, there's twists and turns as you wouldn't know there would be. And even, and funnily enough, I don't know if I want to give this away. Maybe I'll save it till you talk later, François. But there's some twists and turns even after the documentary as I was looking up about it later. So I'll put a pause on that. But it is riveting. It is riveting, and this is one of the only documentaries really that I heard about, and I had to search out until I owned it. I couldn't find it anywhere to watch, but I had heard about it. And then even there's sort of a sister documentary, not by the same director or anything, called Chasing Ghosts. If you haven't heard of it, it's called Chasing Ghosts. Beyond the Arcade. It's not the same person, but there's the same people in it because it takes place at Twin Galaxies and it's about a different video game. Anyway, so if you like the one, you'll love the other. But a little tidbit here, the guy who directed this, Seth Gordon? Wait, what do I know the name? He's directed some actual films, like real films. Aside from this, I would have never thought. You know what he's directed?
No, what?
Horrible Bosses.
Okay. Yeah.
Identity Theft or Identity Thief or whatever.
Yeah.
And there's a few others. Like I'm just like, whoa, this guy. Normally it's not. There's a guy's not a guy. You know what I mean? Who's doing it?
Yeah.
So, but anyway, so that is a fun. Like if you just want to have fun and
so
remember the
good.
past, watch King of Kong. So
Yeah, it's like we'll talk about it later,
Yeah,
obviously.
yeah.
But it's like people taking themselves too seriously. That's all it is.
Oh, for sure.
I love that, and that's always a fun world to dive into.
yes.
Oh, I love it. AB, we're heading into your number three.
Okay, so we're going to continue. We're going to continue along with the same kind of thing. This is one of the very first movies I ever saw at the Windsor Film Festival, and it was showing at the Palace downtown, and they had the producer and the director there, and they were there to answer Q&As afterwards, and you could meet them, and they were super nice. And that movie is 2005 Metal a Headbanger.
Oh, it's not.
Oh my
directed
God.
by Sam Dunn.
That's
so,
the one. That's the one, Andrew.
Yeah, this is when we were talking about this the other night, and
Oh.
and François was like, maybe I'll put that on the list. And I'm like, oh, don't you?
Because it's really good, and I really want it. And then you're lucky because I forgot again after. I forgot. I was like, what was it again? I was like, nah, never mind.
Nope,
Keep it.
Nope, I'm not gonna tell you.
Keep it.
So Sam Dunn is an anthropologist, and so what he does is he starts to dissect the world of metal as a culture, and so he goes through the roots of metal. He kind of has his like branches of where the bands came from, and that's super interesting. But he also really looks at it as a lifestyle. Like he talks about how metal, for most real metal fanatics, it's something that encompasses their whole life, right? They something they take very seriously, as opposed to a casual musical. Everyone listens to some kind of music of some kind, but these people take it to the next level as far as what they like. And so he really dissects metal and what it means to people. He talks about the different regions around the world. One of the funniest scenes in there for me, and I actually asked him about it during the Q&A, is when he goes to interview the Norwegian death metal or black metal guys.
Oh my
and
God.
So there's the one guy, Gorgoroth or whatever his name was, and he says they were like, what inspires you most to make your music? And the guy's drinking some wine, and he takes a sip of his wine. Satan.
Yeah.
I'm sitting there like, oh,
that's
my
very
God,
funny.
I'm laughing. And so I asked him, I'm like, man, what was that guy like off camera? Like, was this guy serious? Like, this thing, and he's like dead. He's like deadly serious. This guy was the real deal. Like, it was. I was like, I would not be able to keep straight face interviewing this dude, and this like Satan.
The Norwegian death metal guys, I can get into a lot of things. I'm gonna back away from that.
Those guys are insane.
That's a really like disturbing part of that documentary. And he's a big metal guy. Even he's like, I don't know about this. Like it's kind of crazy. But that dude Sam Dunn, he went on to do a whole ton of stuff. He had another documentary right after called The Global Metal, where he looks at metal over the world. He went on to do a series called Metal Evolution, and he did Hip Hop Evolution on
I watched
Netflix.
That.
Yeah,
that was him.
And
Okay.
And then he also does this other documentary that I love. Is called Super Duper Alice Cooper, and it's all about Alice Cooper, and it's an amazing documentary as well.
It's the greatest title ever.
Yeah.
Is that more recent one?
Yeah.
He
did that one too. And so, and he did one on Rush. He did no thing. And so I'm like, this guy is awesome. Like, I just like the way he does the things, the way he breaks things down, the way he the way me and François have talked about the other night. If you're not a metal person at all, like if you don't care about things, it's still interesting because the way he lays it out for you and presents it. It's like you can look at it and be like, as you're almost like with him studying this culture of people, and it's very interesting.
You appreciate it.
Yeah.
You appreciate it as a culture and as a people. You're like, okay, well, I won't listen to this. I probably won't after this movie either, but it's really interesting to see how all of that came to be. And you're like, oh, well, I know Metallica. Yeah. Okay. And I know that. Okay. I've heard of that. So I remember that's what I was telling you, is like going to my sister's, and I just kind of threw it on because everyone else was doing something. It was 15 minutes in. I'd already seen it. And then everyone just gradually walked in the room and sat down. And then we just watched the entire movie again. And I was like, yeah, it's a good movie.
Yeah, he really presents things well and in a very interesting manner. So, and he's in a, like I said, we got to talk to him. Amazing guy, very personable, very, very great guy. Canadian too. He's a Canadian guy. So
that's right.
Yeah.
Cool.
That is my number 3, Metal Headbangers Journey.
Yeah. Highly recommend that movie. That's a great movie. Mine takes a hop across the pond, as they say. I don't know who says that, but I don't know why I saw this. I was on a kick. I've always appreciated British stuff, British movies, British music, and then I started checking out British documentary. And British life is interesting because it's you've got quite a criminal element in England. And this is what this is. This is called A Very British Gangster. Has anyone ever seen this? Oh my God. No. Okay. You would probably enjoy it.
Yeah. Sounds great.
So it's
already.
a documentary about one of Britain's most dangerous crime families, the Noonans. And so it's the leader, Dominic Noonan, is the subject of this documentary. His nickname, or he changed his name to Latley Fotfoy, his last name. It stands, just to give you an idea of who this guy is. He's they describe it as larger than life. It's Latley Fotfoy. It stands for look after those that look after you, fuck off those that fuck off you. That's what his name stands for. This guy is a gay gangster with a son who hangs around. He's got like a gangster, like you see in the movies, like you know when you see a British movie about gangsters, and you go, well, it's for the movie, right? And like, nope, this is exactly how these people are. They pull off crimes and heists and horse racing thing. This is modern and
okay. This is a modern.
This guy is like alive, like he's in the documentary. Okay. This is about him, and
so this all took place in like the 90s and present day.
Yeah. This is I forgot to write down the year, but it's definitely like 90s or so. So the cool thing is that it's very interesting because the whole time you do have this whole thing where you can't believe, like to me, you have this whole feeling like you can't believe this guy is the guy they're describing. You know what I mean? You're like, this guy? He seems harmless. You know what I mean? Like maybe like, is this guy just making himself seem bigger? But then you look at his rap sheet and this guy is serious, man. And then looking it up today so I could type this up and write up what was going on. I was like, I read that there's a Very British Gangster 2 now, and his son followed in his footsteps. Now his son, who in the documentary is very young, has now grown up to be a criminal of himself. This dude, Dominic Noonan, has now been convicted of like sexual assault on minors, like this. So now it changes the whole tone of the documentary when you're like, this goof is the real deal. But the documentary is quite like, it's riveting, it's fun, it's is this guy taking himself too seriously or is he actually serious? And so A Very British Gangster, and this is one of the ones that I actually own.
Whoa, it's real. It's real.
And the number 2 is great. It's the same idea, but it's the back of his head, and there's a 2, like they went really theme-ish on it. So anyway,
I wonder is this streaming anywhere? Do you know?
I did not.
Oh no.
Yeah, I didn't know, but
I'll do somewhere.
I'll trade you this one for that other one you had about Tribe Called Quest.
Oh, all right.
We'll just do a tradesies. Okay. That's my number 3. Matthew, what do you got coming on at number 3?
My number 3 is a subject matter that is well known in the group as a favorite of mine. It's the Apollo space program. My number 3 is Apollo 11. This came out in 2019, and it's really, really good. There's no voiceover, there are no interviews, there's no reenactments. It's all just footage from the night before the launch to splashdown and then getting onto the aircraft carrier. Now, what's really great about it is the footage that really takes place around it's bookended by unused, unseen, like 65 7mm footage, and it looks so crisp you would think it was shot yesterday. Like, yeah, I mean,
Wow.
everyone is crystal clear, and I don't want to say they look like actors, but it certainly looks modern. I mean, it looks like it looks like it was made.
Because they are.
Does it ever show Stanley Kubrick?
Guys,
No,
who's the
he's not
director?
on
Who's the
that.
director?
Yeah.
He's making a sandwich, just drops it and runs out.
But yeah, like I said, it looks like it was made yesterday, like it was a period piece. But yeah, so they launch up, and all of the communication from Apollo 11 down to mission control is all of the narration that goes on through the movie. It's all just footage. It's just and kind of told in a linear format. They get on, launch, land, walk around, get back on, come back to Earth, chutes open, they hit the water, they get on the ship, and you get to experience Apollo 11 virtually from the spacecraft itself.
That's cool.
I mean, I really can't say much more than that. It's just really great to watch.
That's awesome. It does sound like a waste of time. Like, if I'm going to travel that far, I'm going to stay a little longer than just, get off, get back on. And like, we stay a day, maybe check out some sites.
On
There's
the moon.
the dark side. The dark side. They never went there.
Lawn chair. Put a lawn chair back there.
Who gets top
Suntan.
billing on that? Is the top billing on that documentary? Is
You know what?
Buzz Aldrin now.
Gary Sinise.
Gary Sinise.
Sinise.
That I love that idea though. I love the idea of a documentary with like, no, we're not gonna fluff it up, man. It's just here's what happened. We filmed all of this. We took care of it. Let's just watch this footage. So it's cool. Was it remastered at all, or
I mean,
is that why it's so sharp? Or
I mean, I would probably think so because of the footage. Like when you record something on 65 and 70mm film, you get every detail perfect, and it wasn't used, so they probably had to master reels and the canisters of film and put them through a modern day reformat. But it looks perfect.
That's awesome.
I assume so. Cool.
Great way to see it. Sort of like, here it is, the whole intense moment. I love it. Scott, what do you got coming in number?
Cool.
3?
Matt and I were following kind of similar structures. So my number 3 is my number 1 passion in the world of sports, and then 3, 2, and 1 are very sports centric. We'll go from there. But what I really wanted to pick on somewhere on my list was I was definitely going to pick an ESPN 30 for 30. I think the ESPN 30 for 30 documentaries are the greatest thing ESPN has ever done. There is a wide breadth of variety with it. I had a few that were going to make the list, and ironically, the one that did, my number 3, is one that came out this February. It's one of their most recent. It came out 2020. And anyone who knows me and these guys in the group know some of my obsessions in the world of sports and with athletes are arrogance, cockiness, swagger, race, divide of race, young, cocky, black, all that stuff. But I'm also infatuated very much with the story of Icarus. Icarus, who flew too close to the sun, burned his wings, and crashed and fell to earth. And there is no athlete in my lifetime that has ever emulated the high highs and the low lows than when I witnessed the documentary ESPN 30 for 30, The Life of Michael Vick. Michael Vick, who was tried and went to prison and served time for dogfighting. So it's 2 parts. Both are an hour and a half long. I'm just going to cliff notes over as best I can. But the part 1 starts with Michael Vick coming up from very humble beginnings, nothing very much in Virginia, gets a scholarship to Virginia Tech, just natural skill alone, doesn't have to care. He's a scrambling quarterback, so he's very fast with his feet. He's very much a modern day Willie Beeman in that fact. He's got all the gift that's ever been given to a single athlete, and he can do little Little work, little prep, and he still gets it. So he goes, he's the first overall pick, the first African-American quarterback ever chosen first overall pick in the NFL draft. Signs a $100 million deal to toast the town, goes to Atlanta. Megastar. For me, I was 14 years old when Michael Vick broke on the scene. He was my guy. I had Michael Vick jerseys, Michael Vick shoes, Nike athlete. He was unbelievable. He had an impeccable swagger. He oozed rap, the drip, Allen Iverson, him. They were the two meccas in the world of sports at the time. Cornrowed athletes, popped up in rap videos, loved him. 2006, wheels start coming off. Then you find out he has ties to Bad News Kennels, which was in Virginia. He paid and funded this dogfighting ring. So part one is very much the rise of him. Part two is where it comes down and is crashed back to earth. And everyone is in this. Former teammates, Arthur Blank, who owns the Falcons, Roger Goodell, Michael Vick is throughout all present day talking about it candidly as well too. And what it just shows, somebody who was arrogant, very much thought he was untouchable. He was in commercials talking about how invincible he was on the football field, and believed it. And he says cops were showing up. What, they're not going to touch me. I have $200 million been like in the safe here. What are they going to do? No one's going to touch me. Ultimately, he was done in by his own hubris. Served jail time, came back, played back on the Eagles, ultimately smoothed through his image, and he was subsequently retired 2 years ago. Rehabbed his image in a way, not to everybody, and that's fine. But what it really does impressively, there is a ton of footage I've never seen, and that's what I admire about this documentary. I was going to put James Tobeck's Tyson or something else, but there was so much footage, and I already knew the story. What I love about this was 3 hours of footage, maybe 10 minutes. I've seen a little bit of gameplay, a little bit of the stuff from his playing days, so much of him in prison, so much from the other guys that he was hanging out with. It was such a great story on, him coming out of the hood, but because he played so close, it followed him there, and he wasn't able to shake it. He wanted to take care of everyone. So there was so much footage and interviews, and it was very raw, and it was very truthful, that's why I think it's the greatest feat that ESPN has ever done. And that's saying something because it just came out a few months ago. But the life and times of Michael Vick is my number 3.
Does it get into the Ron Mexico stuff?
Oh no, that glazes over that. So it talks about the weed. So that was all one summer, the weed, and then goes right into the dog fighting. But in between that was like the herpes meds.
Yeah,
but it doesn't talk about that at all.
I think that's so funny. The jerseys, everyone was ordering Ron Mexico jerseys.
So it doesn't talk about that at all. But that's if you know. But ultimately, like I said, so part 1 ends with him the teetering, and then 2 goes right into it. So that was one I watched twice since it came out, and it's an unbelievable rise, fall, and rise again.
I wanted to put, like I said, we talked about before we got in here, I wanted to put some 30 for 30s on here because they do such an incredible job. I've seen a ton of them. There hasn't been too many that I have not liked. I have not enjoyed. And some of my favorites are about things that I don't even care about. Like one of my favorites is the two Escobars.
Yeah, two Escobars.
And I hate soccer. I hate soccer. I can't stand soccer, but it's such an amazing documentary about soccer. And obviously it's about Pablo, but like they just 30 for 30 does a great job of making things interesting that even if you don't care about them. So
I'd say
I'm definitely interested in
some of their most important ones too to watch if you have no passing interest. Broke is unbelievable. Broke is 2 hours of like athletes talking about where all their money goes and why they're so bad with their money. Armstrong came out after Vic, and that's almost the exact same style documentary. I give Vic the edge just on the basis of the race debate of it as well too. There's so much oozing with race on that.
Even something like bias.
Yeah, without bias.
Without bias, like that's incredible. But anyway, yeah.
So there's a lot. So yeah, I think that's the best 30 for 30, but that's saying something because there are so many good ones.
That's awesome. That's great. I have to get to that one. Mike, round it off again. Number 3.
Scott took the words out of my mouth. That's not my.
Also, Michael Vick.
Yeah. I'm gonna do something a little different, knowing what Andrew's number 2 is. I'm going to pass it over to him and continue the conversation with him. So, Andrew, go.
Okay, so his 3 and my 2 are the same movie. This is going to be the very first movie that I don't actually own, and I don't actually own it because I don't ever want to watch it again in my entire life. And to be honest, I don't need to ever watch it for the rest of my life because I will never forget it. I will never forget this movie. I will never forget anything about this movie because it crushed me. And I don't know, do you have it, Mike? Do you have the? There you go. It's called Dear Zachary,
my God.
a letter to a son about his father from 2008.
I refuse to watch that movie because I cried just thinking about it.
Yeah,
I have no idea what it is.
We didn't want to talk about it separately because of that, so we're kind of doing this together.
Yeah,
because to bring it up twice.
I'm tearing up just thinking about it right now. It's crazy.
This is going to be a kind of catharsis for us talking about it. So I was supposed to watch this movie with a friend of mine would meet every week with a group of people, and they would watch a documentary, and then afterwards they would talk about it and to discuss it. And so I didn't go to this. I was supposed to go see this, and I didn't go to it. I watched it a few days later, and I got the word from him that I'm like, and I was so glad because I guess it was just a mess there. And I've honestly, I've never cried so hard after watching anything in my entire life. Like I was like ugly crying to the point where like I couldn't stop. Yeah. And so just I don't know, you want to talk about what like, and so I'm trying to think who how the box out. Who's the director?
The director is
I'm reading it.
Kurt Kuhn is the director, and why this was so powerful.
Don't read too much, Scott. Don't read too much.
Well, you know we're talking about it right here. You can just listen to us.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
Kurt Kuhn directed it, and why it's so powerful, without saying too much, is that he is best friends amongst other people of the main character, if you want to call him a character. He's the best friend of Andrew, even though the film's called Dear Zachary. Zachary is the son of Andrew, and so Kurt is his best friend. And all the footage and all the people he interviews are people, and all the video and pictures he got are from his life because he's in this character's life because they were friends, right? So it's not like someone from the outside, filming a documentary and talking about it like Herzog did with Grizzly Man. This is someone who lived with this person, and now this person is no longer here. And so the documentary initially starts there. I don't know if you want to jump out from that, Andrew.
So originally his plan was this was never supposed to see the light of day as far as in the public. He was going to make this documentary about Andrew, his best friend who was murdered. And as a video documentary to show to Andrew's unborn son Zachary, and all about his father, and it was supposed to be a very private thing. And like we've said in other documentaries, what he starts out doing as he's filming this thing, he starts uncovering all this stuff about what happened to his friend, and then things start happening as far as the case goes, and it just goes to horrible directions. And so you like, I'm sorry. Okay. So
don't spoil it. I want to see it one day.
No, I'm not going to spoil. I'm not going to spoil it at all, but I'm just getting emotional thinking about it. One of the big characters that he interviews are this guy's parents. Right. And so like, they're very much his surrogate parents as well. Right. Cause it's his best friend. And so like they do a lot of interview with him. And you just feel the pain that they feel of losing their son. And one of the very cool things about it. So if you can watch this documentary, you can go on YouTube, and there's actually an addendum documentary. It's a half-an-hour documentary on YouTube that follows like what happens after the documentary. And one of the cool things about this documentary, and kind of I don't want to say brings you out of the horrible things that happen, but because of this documentary, there was a bill passed and because part of this is in Canada, there was a bill passed in Canadian law to change Canadian law because of this documentary, and it was called it's called the Zachary Bill. And so Canadian law was actually changed because of the documentary, and I thought that was amazing.
Yeah, they touch on that at the end of the film.
And it gets even further into that documentary.
Why this is so powerful is because you're dealing with a person who was in medical school, and he was in medical school in the States, and then he went to Newfoundland to go to medical school, and he met this woman who was so much older than him, and he was so much younger, and this was the big shocking whatever. And so he is such a personable guy, this Andrew Bagby who had died. but he had friends everywhere he went, and everywhere he went, everyone wanted to be his friend. And you could just see this in the documentary, and everyone just, when they talk about him, they talk with such passion, and they're heartbroken because he's gone. And you see this through the film. And like Andrew said, what's the craziest part about it is you're watching that and you're like, oh, that's awesome. Oh man, we know what's going to happen. You can tell what's going to happen and who did it, you know, and then all of a sudden there's a twist. And then you're like, whoa, it's all about this. And then there's another one. Like it happens like two different times where you go, how could this happen? To
like
all of these
the bottom keeps dropping out.
Yeah.
And
it's all real.
The bottom
and all these people's reactions, and you hear them talking about him so passionately. He was like the best man at like multiple people's weddings because he's just that, like, it was just, anyways, it's hard to talk about it without talking too much about it, but it was such a, and I did rewatch it before this, so this would be the second time I saw it.
I did not. That's the only one I did not watch again.
And doing it again, it was the same reaction. I knew what was going to happen. I 100% knew, but it's not any less powerful. You just go and you get so mad at Canada justice system and what happened in Newfoundland and how they let a lot of this stuff happen, the results of the things that occur. But anyways, so powerful movie.
Yeah.
Nice.
And like I said, honestly, it's number 2 on my list. The rest of my movies obviously follow the theme of music, and I love music documentaries, but there was no way that this was not making it on my list because of how much it affected me. And like I said, I will never forget this movie. I will never forget this documentary for as long as I live because it was that powerful.
Nice. Well, there we are. That brings us at the end of
three
the 3
and number 2,
beginning of the 2s, which brings me up, and also a common link with Mike, because that is where I put the King of Kong, Fistful of Quarters. Same reasons, man. The same reason. It's exactly it. It's larger than life, but real life characters who are like, you're not serious about being this serious about it, right? And like real life villain Billy Mitchell. He's a real life villain. Yeah, he's the guy with his little minions and his little this and his nitpicking and his jerkism and all that, and his mullet and his dumb suits and stuff. And the good thing is, I believe like someone legitimately, very legitimately, if it wasn't the dude from the I forget his name, Steve Wiebe, it was someone else, like legitimately broke his record and like took it away from him. Like I read this like a couple years ago.
Let's dish the dirt.
That's official. Oh, you know what? You know the actual. You did the research.
I know the stats on this.
Perfect.
So, 100%. So Wiebe. So in this documentary, Wiebe beat him by like 200,000 points or something, and then they said no, he didn't. And then he came in live because all of this is about, like, they keep saying we want to see you beat this record live. So
on
Wiebe
our
comes
machine.
in. Yeah, so Wiebe comes in and beats the record live. Gets like 900,000 points. Yeah. And so it's like, take that. And then this, mulleted, stallion has one of his minions hand in a tape like 2 hours after Wiebe beats his record. And the tape shows him getting 1,000,000-something points, not live, on tape. And then they take that as the record. Oh, blah, blah, blah. Like, so anyways.
And the dumb dramatic reveals that he had the tape, but he waited till 2 hours after the competition to send it in.
So since the documentary, Steve actually broke the record twice. Yes. So they recognized his original record, and then he broke it again in 2010. Okay. And then here's the best part about all that. Later on, it was revealed that these other ones that Billy Mitchell did, right? Not the one in 1982. They were all done on an emulator, not on an actual machine, which voids the whole thing, and he was deemed a fraud.
And kicked out. And kicked out of the whole thing. He's not like, lose
yours,
everything.
Billy.
Oh,
it became so it's like an action movie where the guy, it's like Wreck-It Ralph, when the king is like, no, this is my land and I'm gonna live that.
Oh,
and then it's proven a fraud, and it's like,
absolutely.
Like when you watch it, they don't seem like real people other than Steve. Steve seems like a real guy. Like him, Billy and his minions, and the stupid referee guy all seem like
Walter Day.
They all look like they all seem like they are characters.
One of their names
in a film.
one of their names is Steve Saunders, like from Beverly Hills
That's
90210. That's his real name. I'm like, no way. Steve Saunders, yeah, he's sitting there. But the one guy I can't stand, watch this and tell me I'm wrong. It's that Brian Koo guy, the guy who comes in and he's like, he stands behind Weeby as he's playing, and he's like standing behind him. He's like, oh wow, and he's like talking to him in his ear while he's playing, like clearly trying to distract him. And then he calls up Billy Mitchell. Okay, well, right now he's got these many points.
Yeah. Oh my God.
My blood's
just
boiling.
A bunch of weirdos. And like you said though, Steve Weeby is the only normal dude who's like, I don't know. I have the game in my garage and I'm pretty good at it.
And it's like it's this thing like he loves it, right? He loves playing it, but like he has an actual life outside of it, right?
Yes.
Like this is like his like side passion.
But you hear his wife talk about how he has sort of like he's tried so hard in so many things, and like there's a sort of a tragic story that this is his one thing he's kind of good at, and then they keep ripping it away from him, and you're like, oh come on, Steve, you can just do
give it to Steve. Give him that. Billy also like had other records too, so he could have just been like, "Fuck it," you know, who cares? And now, Billy. Billy.
Yes.
All right, number 2. We're at number 2 with Matt.
Yeah. I picked my number 2 because it has a little personal history behind it, because it contains interviews with my grandmother.
Oh,
yeah!
Wow.
My number 2 is The Greatest Freedom Show on Earth.
Oops, sorry.
The
other
Greatest
Matt.
Freedom Show on Earth. Now,
That's your grandmother?
No, that's not my grandmother.
She looks nothing like you.
That is Walter Perry, who is a local Windsor legend who decided that every year on Emancipation Day, they were going to hold a parade and huge festival in Jackson Park. For those of you who don't know, we all live in the Windsor area, and Jackson Park is, a center part of the town, of the city rather. It starts off with a lot of Underground Railroad history. It talks about, slave. It's got some really good reenactments in it too. Slaves fleeing the United States, crossing the Detroit River, and getting to Windsor, Windsor and Amherstburg, because I think Amherstburg has like one of the narrowest parts of the Detroit River, so it's easier for them to cross.
From what I hear, it was a main crossing point. Yes,
absolutely. And then it goes into
the main Amherstburg River.
Yeah,
from what I hear.
Drop your knowledge as well.
Yeah,
and then it goes from freed slaves to the early 20th century into the 1930s, which is when the Emancipation Day celebration first started, and it went on for several decades. I really didn't know anything about it until I saw this and then listened to stories from my grandmother. And they all took place in Jackson Park. Like we all know it now, Jackson Park is kind of split into 2 spaces because we've got the overpass there. That didn't exist. In place of that was a big grandstand area with like seating for 1,000 people with a nice big awning. So if it was too hot or too wet during the celebration, everyone could just hang out under there for a while. At some point in our history, that burned down and they didn't bother rebuilding it. And that was in the 1950s. I think like late 1950s. And from there, it kind of declined in population of the festival. People didn't want to go without, shade, or if it rained, a shelter to stay under. And then it finished in 1968 after Walter Perry died. No one else wanted to take on the reins and continue putting on the festival. But it's amazing local history. If you guys haven't seen it, if you live in the States, I'm gonna drop where you can see it. If you live in the States, it's on Amazon Prime, and I think if anywhere else, it's on Vimeo. You can go on Vimeo.com.
Okay, so I have my phone. What is it called again?
The Greatest Freedom Show on Earth.
Okay,
and I'm pretty sure the whole thing is on there because I clicked on it earlier, and it's got the full 2-hour runtime. You can pretty sure you can also pick it up at the Freedom Museum in Amherstburg.
Oh, nice.
DVD.
François, can we?
Yeah, I'll get you guys. It's down the road. Everything's down the road in
that sounds great. I love seeing Windsor, Detroit.
It's all
history
Windsor,
stuff.
Detroit history from
Very cool.
people who are still alive and got to see that festival. So most of their stories take place in the 50s and 60s, but there are some great stories about celebrities coming into town because they would host a talent show. One of my favorite stories, and it's my grandmother on there telling it. She tells a short story about the Supremes. When they first started out, came to Windsor, entered the talent show, and to cross the bridge, it was like a 5-cent ticket to cross the bridge, and they all paid their 5 cents, and they had to win the talent show because they didn't have a way to get back. They had no money.
It's like a movie.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they entered and
no
won.
talent Supremes.
First prize was $15, so they got their
Amazing.
money, and then they can get the
They were
bus back to
rich.
Detroit.
Yeah, they can go back and forth as much as
love
they
it.
want at that point.
Wow.
The greatest freedom show on earth. My
I
number
love
2.
it. Also, do you
That's
guys
very
want to throw a
cool.
festival? That sounds like a lot of fun. Let's take over. Can we just start? Because I'd love to go to a festival in Jackson
Ain't no
Park.
festivals happening anytime soon.
Well, no, maybe 2022. Maybe
Oh,
2022.
man.
Number 2, Scotty.
Okay, so if AB had a hard time choking back tears on his number 2, I'm going for the most emotional one of mine, and it's a documentary that came out in 2015. It's one I've seen by far the most because it's a very easy watch. It's a very simple watch. It's one that Showtime put it on, directed by Gotham Chopra, who's a documentarian. He covered an individual who is somebody I can listen to and think about and watch videos and interviews of any time of the day. Actually, I listen to a podcast that is just interviews of this man, and it's not a spectacular documentary in the sense that there's nothing groundbreaking in it, but it is just an hour and a half of this man reflecting back on his life. And it is 2015's Muse about the life of Kobe Bryant. And what it does is it covers Kobe Bryant's injury during 2013 season where he's rehabbing from his torn Achilles. And throughout it, it's parallel stories of him rehabbing with him talking black and white in a room, just him, the cameraman, and he's sitting on a table or a chair and table, and just kind of like Last Dance style. And he's going back and he's talking about what motivates him and why he's coming back and why he's doing this and something because his career's winding down and he wants to reflect. And it goes back to him being a very hyped phenom out of high school and coming in and his stuff with Shaquille O'Neal. And certainly it's heartbreaking and wrenching when he really gets in and dives into a sexual assault case of 2004. And he talks about because of the stress he put on his family at the time, his wife suffered a miscarriage, which was new information at the time when it hit. And it was just groundbreaking revelations that this man was undergoing, and you could really see. And Kobe Bryant is by far my favorite athlete, and even now, it's very tough to believe that he is gone. He passed subsequently in January. I do have a Kobe Bryant wall, and you'll see there the Mamba Mentality book. That's a book he wrote, and it's a hard copy book, coffee table style, and that goes through his whole career, and that's just kind of motivational tips, tricks, and the way he views the world and what gave him the edge as an athlete and as a man, as an individual. And that's pretty much what the documentary encapsulates, is that book into it. And it's just him kind of talking about some of his passions and hopes and dreams for what he was doing on the court and moving beyond the court, which again has been snuffed out far too soon. But like I said, this documentary isn't anything spectacular, and any fan of Kobe Bryant, who at the time I lived his entire career. I was 9 when he was drafted. I saw him in '96. I saw him throughout, and I saw him his last game he played in Detroit. But like I said, it's a documentary that I remember when it aired. I watched it religiously. I put it on. I put it on when he passed, and I put it on again twice. It's a very brisk walk. You can even listen to it. You don't need to visually. It's just a lot of conversation, and it's an incredible conversation. There are 2 documentaries predominantly for Kobe, and one is Doing Work by Spike Lee, where he breaks down a game, which is probably a better documentary, but that only focuses solely on one game. And this is just an encapsulation of his whole life and him as a man. And for a lot of heartbreaking reasons, it's him rehabbing and then comes back, but towards the end of that season, he separates his shoulder and he's like, well, we're going to come back again. And he talks about the last line of the documentary is very chilling, where he says, if I couldn't come back from my struggles, that would be a fate worse than death. And watching it in hindsight now is beyond chilling. There's no movie, there's no other documentary that affects me in that way, in the chilling sense of 2020 vision of the times. So just for a multitude of reasons and my love for him as a human being, Kobe Bryant's Muse is my number 2.
Nice. That's a good
Cool.
one. Good reason. Mike, what do you got coming in at number 2?
Well, I feel like this documentary category has
It's
led
very
me
dark.
has led
I
me
was gonna
well.
say,
You gotta
Yeah.
pep us up, pal.
Yeah.
No. I'm actually it's led me to do some different things that I haven't done in shows. I was so torn between my 1 and 2 because they're so intertwined in theme that I'm actually going to do something I've never done, which is I'm going to defer my number 2 because I want to talk about them simultaneously as my number 1. And you'll see why when I do.
whoa.
But I figured if I did it in the 2 now, it wouldn't really. So I want to hold off and do them both at the same time.
Cool.
I like
Yeah,
that.
break the
Yeah, I
flow
like
or
that.
else. I get that.
Yeah.
I get that. Well, then out with you.
I feel bad because my Michael Vick, I just combined parts 1 and 2. Should I have waited 2?
No, it's not.
fine.
No, it's not. It's
I'm
not.
joking. I know.
Yeah. Honorable mentions.
Oh yeah. Let's get down
Yeah.
to our honorable mentions at this point, where we talk about the 3 that almost made it, and it's great. This is good. No explanations though. We just don't. We just have to talk
Well,
about it. Eh?
kind of have to explain
What
what the movie is. You gotta
No,
have to say what the documentary is
Yeah,
about.
say
You
the
can't be
title and
like-
then the
yeah.
You
subject.
You
can't
have
say be
20
like,
seconds.
well, here's this movie and it's
Briefly.
thing.
Like
Yeah.
what it's about. Yeah, real quick.
Yeah.
Okay, go.
Okay, so, but
AB.
two of them don't need to. It's Minism's End of the Century, the Ramones, all about the history of the Ramones, and it's awesome. Depeche Mode 101. Obviously, don't need any explanation there. This was the one I do an explanation for. It's called Scratch, and it's about the history of DJs in hip hop.
Sick.
So
wanna
all
borrow that.
about. Oh, it
I
is
wanna borrow
amazing.
that.
It's
Yeah.
on. Sorry, I
that.
only have it on VHS because apparently it doesn't exist on Blu-ray. I looked for it everywhere, and it does not exist. So
Does it
and then you have
exist
to have
on
a
DVD?
VCR. I don't think it has it on DVD either. I
Mm.
tried to get it, and I couldn't find it anywhere. I only have it on VHS.
And
But
your
yeah,
copy,
it's amazing.
and your copy's all scratched up, I think, too, right?
Oh.
Let's just look. No, this is actually. I love this documentary so much. I actually
Look at
made
that brick.
I made the case and I made the labels
Oh,
for
that's
it.
cool. Oh,
So
you did?
I made
Oh.
all of this.
That's
Wow.
That's
Yeah.
great.
Okay, good honorable mention. I'll give you that one. I'll give you that one.
That was actually going to go on my list, but then I was like, yeah,
Cool.
I want to talk about the other songs.
So Ramones, Scratch, and what was the other one?
Depeche Mode 101.
Depeche Mode, that's right. My honorable mentions were I have 4. Can I just say 4 and not talk about them? No, okay, never mind. I'll leave the last one
Okay.
last.
I get
Sure,
one
no.
more.
Okay, so real quick, just for no reason, Fire. It was terrible. It was great. It was great. Fire Festival. No, for real. My honorable mention.
Entertaining.
The Fire Festival. My three honorable mentions for real. Jim and Andy, The Great Beyond.
Great.
Awesome.
Evil Genius, the one about the neck bomb. It's
I don't
dumb.
know.
It's really good. It's one about like they made a guy rob a bank with like a bomb on his neck, and
Wow.
it sounds
Yeah.
like, and it's one of those like it keeps
All right.
going and going
Going
and
on
I'm
going.
the
Like,
watching that.
Oh,
Yeah,
is that
I'm
like
crazy
thir-
going
the-
on the list.
it's on Netflix. It's called Evil
Oh my
Genius.
gosh.
So you
All
know
right.
what? That's like 30 minutes or less. The Jesse Eisenberg movie was
Yes.
based on a true story. That must be the true story.
It's sort of like it
Yeah.
inspired. Yeah, definitely inspired it. Yeah.
I'm
Oh
watching
yeah,
that.
totally is the true story of that. Yep.
Yeah. So they
And-
made that a movie, a fake comedy.
This one for I can't like it's on my honorable mentions. I really like it, and I hope that like I'm thinking maybe Scott. I don't know. Enron, the smartest guys in the room.
Oh, I did. I've heard of it. I don't think I've seen it. That's very funny.
I actually have it.
Yeah.
I've never seen it.
Okay,
I
so
own it.
it sounds uninteresting as shit, and that's why I like it. It's super interesting. It actually puts it all in a way that you go, oh, I get why that was a big deal now like I understand, and I know why, like what they did wrong, and wow, is it ever wrong what they did?
Yeah.
Wow. So Enron, smartest guy in the room. That is my
Cool.
honorable
I
mentions,
might actually have to watch that now. It's in my other room there. I think I've got it at one of like the video store closings.
Did
And
you
I'm on
join the
cell phone.
Illuminati?
Yeah. End of days. Is that
666 for 1999.
Matthew, what do you got? Honorable mentions. Honorable.
Behind the Planet of the Apes. It's a
Yes.
documentary about
Yeah.
Are you going to bring up Planet of the Apes on every
Yes.
show?
Every show. Every
I
show.
like
Well,
that.
wait till my number one of Back to the Future again. For some
Back to the Future 2. It was a documentary.
Room 327.
Yes.
The Arists get together and talk about The Shining.
Oh, okay, cool.
And Waking Sleeping Beauty, the documentary about the Disney Renaissance.
Oh, wow. Nice.
Have you guys seen that Room 327?
But
No.
don't watch it
Right
late
on.
at night. It's sleep. I fell asleep a few times because I tried to watch it too late at night. I had to
Oh,
watch
yeah.
it earlier in the day.
First of all, you got to watch that one. You want to talk about like
Stanley
characters, but I mean
Oh,
characters and like weirdos and stuff. I think you'd really like that one.
Kubrick. Yeah,
Like it is out there. It's out there.
conspiracy theories.
Yeah.
Theories.
Yeah.
Love it. Scott, honorable
my,
mentions.
my three cover a wide variety of some of my favorite stuff: wrestling, politics, sports, and race relations. So my three are The Resurrection of Jake the Snake Roberts,
Oh, yeah.
JFK, the Private President, which is the life of his life. And then again, my third one, another ESPN 30 for 30, almost made the list. OJ Made in America, the 10-part
Oh,
Academy
yeah.
Award winning series.
Now I don't know what your number one is.
Phenomenal. So that's exactly. So those are my three.
Okay.
My honorable mentions were other people's mentions. Well, at least some of them were.
Oh.
Super Size Me, Bowling for Columbine,
And Muse.
and Never Sleep Again, the Elm Street Legacy,
Yes,
which is
there you go.
a 4-hour plus runtime.
I
about-
actually thought it was gonna be one of your one and two, but then you said your
No.
thing, and I was like,
Yeah.
okay, well, obviously that's not on there. I thought that was gonna be one of your one or
Yeah.
two.
I wanted to, but
Yeah.
check it out if you love horror and if you love Nightmare on Elm Street, because it
It's
is
great.
the definitive, and it goes from, and you get like an hour in, and I think you're still talking about the first movie, but
Yeah.
then it goes through the creation and Wes's ideas, but then all of the actors that you can think of pretty much come back, and the directors, and talk about each of the films, and you get dive deep into just all the weird ways some directors took it. Anyways, it's really fascinating.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, especially in a movie that franchise has been treated so many ways.
Yeah.
And then to get
Yeah.
the reasoning why, to
Yeah.
get those directors going.
So-
I went this way because this way, right?
So if you watch Never Sleep Again, you can watch. There's a new one that just came out called Scream Queen, and it's
About how gay number two is.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yes. And so the dude from number two,
Yeah.
the main guy, talks about how filming number two ruined his life. And like there's all this like gay subtext and stuff within number two. And it's actually very, very fascinating. It's called Scream Queen. But that just came out.
Interesting. All right. Well, let's move on to our final rank, number one documentary. These are going to be good. This is where you start taking notes of things you're going to watch this weekend.
So this is this actually ties into something Matt brought up, and we're going to talk a little about Detroit right now. This is a film that I don't even remember when I saw it. I don't remember where I saw it. It's been so much
you see it?
ingrained. No, but it's been like in my life for so long, and I've talked about it to like a bunch of different people. And I always, when people ask for recommendations of stuff like this, I always bring it up because I love it so much, and I don't like. I just like it just has always been with me for so long that I don't even remember, and I've seen it so many times too. And that is from 2002, and that is Standing in the Shadows of Motown.
Oh my God, I love that movie.
Okay,
I
so
forgot about it.
this documentary is all about the Funk Brothers, who were the studio band for the Motown Records, and they have more number one records than Elvis, the Beatles, the Beach Boys, the Rolling Stones, and Elvis combined. If you have heard a Motown song in your life, you have heard the Funk Brothers, because they played on every single Motown song that's ever made. And so they not only played in every song, they also came up with the music for every song. They were responsible for writing the music for all these songs, and that's why they have the Motown sound. And so for decades and decades and decades, these guys were not known. No one knew who they were. Got zero recognition. People within the industry obviously knew who they were because they knew about Motown Records, but the general public did not know who the Funk Brothers were. And so a lot of these guys lived their life, and some of their cases died in obscurity, even though that most of the world has not only knows their songs but loves their songs. And so because of this documentary, goes back to the previous one. Because of this documentary, these guys finally got recognition, and they got inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. They were recognized. They got a Lifetime Achievement and Grammy. They started going out on tour with a bunch of like headliner people to sing for them. Actually, me and a friend of mine got to see them when they played the Blues Fest here a few years ago down by the river, and I got to see. I think there was 4 of the remaining members. Got to see them live at the Blues Fest, and it is just an incredible documentary because it not only is it a history of these guys, and it shows how they live their lives not in the spotlight, but also it gives a history of Detroit. Gives a history of Motown Records, and I just love that. I love seeing old stuff from Detroit from the 60s. I can't say enough about this documentary.
They're in it too. That's a cool thing, is that they're when the documentary is made, a lot of them are alive, so they're in it. They get to tell their side of the story. You get to see them back in the day. You get to see them now. You get to meet and hear their side of the story for real. And I think that's what led all that credence to it and all that credibility that made people go, yeah, this is for real. You can't fake that, and you're not. These aren't. We know this is the story, and now is the time to make good on all that. So yeah, it's an amazing doc for sure.
And they tell heartbreaking stories about, especially about the one bassist James Jamerson, who is like renowned bassist. Like people within the industry know he is the guy, and he got involved in drugs. And died super young, but they're talking about a couple of stories where they're sitting in a restaurant and a song comes on, and they're looking around, and James Jamerson's looking around because it's got the funky bass line, and he sees people grooving to it. And so the waitress comes up, and they're like, tell her that that's you. And he wouldn't do it. He was so shy and so like way back, and like, that he didn't want to say it. He didn't want to bring it out. And the James Jamerson basically died in obscurity, and now he's a legend, right? After the fact, after he's long dead and gone. So that's heartbreaking, but also great.
Well, it's good that it finally, the movie not only was a movie to inform you, but accomplished what it set out to do. It transcended from the movie to the actual real world, and saying, hey, let's like this again, Super Size Me. The one, I forget there's another one that was mentioned that actually affected Canadian law. AB, the one you mentioned.
Dear Zachary.
Ours, the one that we did.
Dear Zachary. Yeah, you guys. So it's great because that's what documentaries do. They try to shed a light, because it's almost like saying, I have the means, I have a voice, I have a way to let people know that this is happening. And chances are you don't want to you could do a documentary that's like, here's the history of something. Excuse me. But there's also that documentary that says, here's a thing that's happening. We need to, fix this or address this, whether it's a social issue or even an injustice like that. And to hear that it works makes that documentary even better. You're like, wow, I'm watching a tool of righteousness. Oh, that sounded very wise.
That was the name of my band in high school.
Tool of righteousness.
No, I didn't have that.
So yeah, number one, Staying in the Shadows of Motown.
Standing in the Shadow of Motown.
It is awesome.
Really good. I think I picked that up in like a $5 bin because I was curious, and I was like, cool. All right, $5, sure. And I took it home, and I was like, oh, this is really good. So yeah. My number one is a nail biter. It is the most incredible documentary I've ever seen. I tell everyone to watch it, and unfortunately, because I want you guys to watch it, I will not tell you very much about it because it is that intense. Don't even look up the.
No, I'm just going to put it in the list.
It's based on a case. So it's called Imposter. The Imposter. The Imposter. It's a documentary film about the 1997 case of a con man who basically inserts himself into these people's lives, and they accept it. And the whole time you're watching going, I can't believe he's getting away with it. But at the same time, I can't believe they're going along with it. So the whole time you're waiting for the whole thing to who's going to give up first, what's going to unravel first. There's a few theoretical twists that happen that sort of make you go, what? And then the whole time you're watching going, this is not a mockumentary, right? This is a documentary. Is it? Right? I remember the first time I saw this, I watched it like 2 nights in a row just to be like, what's going on? And this is one of those I recommended to everybody. Unfortunately, because of the nature of the doc and how I've never, people say you were sitting on the edge of your seat. At one point in the movie, I realized I was actually sitting on the edge of my seat. And my heart was racing. You know when your heart's racing because there's a stressful, like, what's going to happen? And I'm watching a documentary. And I was like, what's going on? What is this? The Imposter, my number 1 doc.
It is streaming. I just looked it up. It's streaming on Prime. So I added it to my list.
Perfect.
Probably watch that tonight or tomorrow.
I'll have to watch it again.
Say just as a plug in there, so Prime, send your money this way. Almost all of the docs that
Dear Zachary is on there.
Yeah, almost all of the ones that I was like, okay, I want to rewatch this before and decide. They were almost all in there. Super Size Me, Bowling for Columbine. Like, it's the go-to doc place, apparently. So,
that's good to know, because sometimes you wonder, like, do they have a large selection? Apparently, the documentaries. Thank you, Amazon Prime. Send all sponsorship money to Mack Flash.
We want to be in The Boys season 3, please.
Oh my God, can we?
Depends on the scene. I don't know.
Homelander can blow kill me.
Oh my God. Matt, what do you got coming in? Number 1.
My number 1 is a documentary I saw. How old am I? I'm 35 now, so more than 10 years ago. Yeah, I don't want to reveal my age, but yeah,
I know. Online.
And I was watching it on I was watching it on the Movie Network, and it came on, and the subject matter just kind of. It was in high school. No, I remember.
Wait a second.
I was in
Did
high
this
school.
happen?
Yeah.
I was
the worst documentary about this documentary I've ever seen.
No, I remember I was in high school because I taped it and I tried to convince one of my English teachers to show it as part of like media English. It's Easy Riders, Raging Bulls.
Yeah, I knew you were going to have that. Awesome.
There you go.
Great.
Now, it's about how it starts with the studio system of filmmaking breaking down in the mid to late 60s with big budget movies that weren't getting enough return on their investment. Like, I think the big one that kind of almost tanked 20th Century Fox or Warner Brothers was Cleopatra. Huge production, didn't do very well at the box office. So studios decided they were going to give small amounts of money to the first group of people who came out of film school, and they were going to have them make low budget movies that might make a few bucks down the road. And these are directors like, I got the whole list right here: Arthur Penn, Dennis Hopper, Francis Ford Coppola, Peter Bogdanovich, Robert Altman, Hal Ashby, Warren Beatty, Roman Polanski, Martin Scorsese, George Lucas, and Steven Spielberg. Now it was
money.
worked out, I'd say.
So all of these people kind of made small movies, sold them to the studios. The studios put them out and made some money. I forget where my point was going. I had a point and it's gone now. Anyways, it finishes off. It goes through it's called like the era of the director-driven film. I mean, and that went for like that for a decade, pretty much throughout the entire 70s, to the point where George Lucas makes Star Wars, and studios discovered, oh wow, this movie's making a lot of money. We're going to invest in we're going to start investing in big budget B movies. And my favorite quote from the documentary is, "It almost didn't matter if the movie was good as long as it had a great trailer." And the studio discovered that system, and that's pretty much how we have movies today.
Yeah.
I mean, these guys came out of film school, especially like Steven Spielberg and George Lucas. They kind of, I mean, it's kind of hinted at those two guys ruined the director-driven film by making these awesome blockbuster movies, and these creative types were like, now we're out of work. Kind of deal.
Yeah.
But it's basically a visual syllabus for film school. You watch this documentary and they talk about all of these movies that span this decade, and write those down and watch those movies. I don't know if like Mike and François, you're not into older movies, you've said before, but these are clearly the ones that are artsy, director driven, very creative. They're pretty much the movies that Quentin Tarantino watched and then kind of lifted for his own.
Gotcha.
So if you want to go back, it's a great way to do that. Easy Riders, Raging Bulls, my number one.
Nice.
As soon as I talked about, the Star Wars and Empire Dreams, the film, how like film studios, as soon as it went to Mike, I was like, oh, I bet he's gonna have Easy Riders on his, and then it came back. So good call.
I love it. I watched it for this, and I've seen it several times.
So best movie year ever, 1999. I'm gonna give you that book next time I see you.
Oh,
it
yeah,
talks all
sure.
about that. It's almost like the sequel to that, where 99 was like the auteur films and like everything else, like Matrix. It talks about that. But it references Easy Riders a ton, and this is kind of like a spiritual pseudo sequel to that.
Yeah.
So yeah, kind of funny.
Cool. Well, while you're there, Scott, what do you got going in at number one?
Okay, so number one is the only documentary I actually own, and it's funny. I was thinking about it. I watched it again a second time. I knew it was going to be my number one. Again, for the subject matter and the importance of the person it covers and the historical sporting event that it encompasses. And as I said, Kobe Bryant's my favorite athlete of all time, but I do think there is someone who is the greatest. And if you don't believe me, he's going to tell you. But,
I know where this is going.
But with that, I do think he's probably the most famous person probably to have ever walked the earth short of Jesus. I do think that this man, in a realm of stuff, politically, sporting, historically, is probably one of the most important athletes we've ever had in our time. He became an icon, and I think he is quintessentially the top icon. And he has a multitude of documentaries about him, some encompassing his life. But I'm going to go with the one that's most renowned. I've seen it the longest, and I've watched it the most times. And I'm going with 1996's When We Were Kings. And When We Were Kings covers the Rumble in the Jungle, and it's Muhammad Ali getting the heavyweight title back from a much younger, stronger, faster George Foreman. And what this documentary does, and now I grew up with this documentary in hindsight. It came out in 1996, and it won the Academy Award for Best Documentary. And the main thing, as far as I can read back, that was so groundbreaking for this documentary, it only encompasses that little slice of life. But there are documentaries that cover Ali's whole life. Say My Name and I Am Ali are two that you can find, I believe, on Prime or Crave, that cover his whole life and his Vietnam stuff and his exodus and things like that. But I like this one because it just covers that little sliver, the kind of half hour, 20 minutes you get in the Ali biopic. But it dives deep, deep, deep into it. And what it does is this documentary sat on 20 years of footage that had never been seen. The Rumble in the Jungle happened October 30th, 1974, and this documentary came out in 96, and there is 2 hours of footage that had never seen the light of day before this. And if you were growing up pre-internet at this time, your only stuff was the fight itself, some post footage, and some like Ali sound bites leading up to it. But this one here covers everything from Don King's choice and decision to have it in Zaire, Africa, to the Woodstock Music Festival that they were putting on. So this documentary has footage with like B.B. King and James Brown, and they were talking about putting together. It's this documentary. You want to talk about something? This documentary started out as a documentary covering the music festival, and the fight was going to be secondary. But then Foreman gets lacerated in a sparring session, so that pushes it back 6 months. And in that time, Foreman goes home, and Ali stays in Africa because he wants to experience his African roots, and in doing so becomes a god to the African people. And this is, he all dives in. It's stuff that the biopic almost glazes over, but it is the conception of Ali Boumbaye, which is Kill Him Ali. And that's how 100,000 people in Africa were cheering it on. And the Rumble in the Jungle itself, it's a fight I've seen multiple times. It's been studied. It's one of the most famous fights. Ali certainly has 3. The super fight 1 against Frazier, the Thrilla in Manila against Frazier, and the Rumble in the Jungle, probably 3 of the most popular fights of all time. So they've been dissected to death. This is the one that had the rope-a-dope strategy. So you're getting a 33-year-old Muhammad Ali who's winning back the title after being stripped of it for not fighting in Vietnam. And that, again, that's all been covered to death. And it's talked about in the documentary, but again, it's common knowledge at the time. This focuses on the psyche of the man. Foreman's in it as well as Don King, and a lot of boxing historians that kind of go through it. And again, it just came out at the time. It came out in 1996 when Muhammad Ali lit the Olympic cauldron again. Just a massive time. Again, I was 8, 9, so I kind of missed the historical significance of this. But as you go older, and what documentaries can do is they can put you in that time, in that headspace. And again, for me being a big boxing fan, for me holding Muhammad Ali on the highest echelon you could hold a human being, politically and sport historical, this is one documentary that I would say, along with Say My Name and I Am Ali, but for me, my favorite documentary will always be 1996, When We Were Kings.
Yeah, very cool.
Yeah, it's great. It's very great. It's a great documentary.
And a dollar match. You gotta have it.
Action figure. Action Fresh Prince. Action figure.
Action figure. It's an action figure. Mike, what do you got?
Might get us out here before 2 hours.
Okay, so so this is a combined number 1 and 2 here. So
Yeah,
how
that's
to
right.
explain this? I saved these together, even though they were filmed something like 16 years apart from each other, because they're essentially, I sort of lived them, if you will. So when I grew up in high school in about 97, 98, I heard about this case about these 3 teenage boys. They were 16, 17, and 18, who got arrested in West Memphis, Arkansas, for the murders of 3 8-year-old boys in West Memphis, Arkansas. And I heard about this through a documentary, and this is my number 2. It was filmed came out in 1996 on HBO. So I saw it on HBO. It's called Paradise Lost. There's Damien Eccles and Jesse and Jason, who were arrested for these child murders in 1993. This documentary I saw in 96. Maybe I saw it in 97. It's possible, but I saw it on HBO. And when I saw it, it was just so powerful, because for 2 reasons. One, I felt like I could be one of those boys, and I don't mean one of the murdered ones. I mean one of the ones arrested. And I'll explain that in a second. But watching it was so powerful because they gave them such unrestricted access. This is before court TV and all that nonsense. The cameras, HBO cameras, the 2 filmmakers there, Joe Berlinger and Bruce Sinofsky, were allowed to film the entire courtroom proceedings. They were allowed in the rooms to talk to the boys. They were allowed all this unprecedented access. And so I saw this, and at the core of it, essentially, these 3 boys were arrested with no evidence whatsoever. 0 evidence whatsoever. The people in Arkansas, the officers and the prosecutors, they needed someone to pin these 3 murders on of these 3 8-year-old boys who just disappeared one night, and they found their bodies hog-tied and in the waters in the woods in West Memphis, Arkansas. And somebody, this was all the hype at the time. Someone said that they thought this was an occult murder, and the occult was involved, and that word came up. And then all of a sudden they talked to the local juvenile corrections officer and said, well, who do you think does that kind of stuff? And he named these boys. And then all of a sudden it was basically, well, these guys listen to heavy metal and they dress in black and they're weird, and this is an occult murder, and they did it. And that's essentially the evidence that they had. And so what happened over my high school career and even into university was I got so enthralled in this. And since the first one came out, they did 2 others. And all the while, as I'm growing up, these boys are only 3, 4, and 5 years older than I am. They're in prison. And here I am listening to punk music and outrage, and I'm wearing the Free West Memphis 3 shirt, and I had a bracelet, and I'm the only reason I don't have those now is I lost the bracelet and the shirt it was so torn up I had to get rid of it. And I was living this. I was like, this is an injustice, and we got, and I was telling all my friends about it, and I was checking the website every day and seeing what the defense has done now and all these things, and so cut to I think it's 18 years later finally, but this documentary I think is something like 16 years. I might be off on my numbers. I think it's 18 years since they went to prison, but this documentary is 16 years after the first. Peter Jackson and Fran Walsh, his wife. Peter Jackson, obviously of Lord of the Rings, full circle here. He, amongst many other celebrities, and I knew about the other celebrities like Eddie Vedder and Henry Rollins and the Dixie Chicks, they all caught wind of this injustice where there was no evidence, there was false testimony, there was just unbelievable things, and it was all just because these boys were different, right? Mainly Damien, because he wore long black hair and he didn't cut it, and he wore metal band shirts. Peter Jackson, no kidding. Yeah. Peter Jackson and Fran Walsh, amongst as well as these other celebrities, caught wind of this, and I didn't know all the behind the scenes. But eventually they put out this film called West of Memphis. Okay. Now, if you're going to watch any of these, I mean, I say watch all 4, but if you're going to say I can only watch one, watch this one. Because this one is the recap, including footage from these and all the story and history, as well as the up-to-date final things where the boys actually finally get out. And how it gets overturned, and all the history behind that, and how it was this loophole that they finally got out with something called the Alford plea, where they have to say they're guilty, but officially they're not guilty. Like, it's some convoluted thing so the government can just say you can't sue us. Like, just everything was just against them, right? Everything was against them. But why I love this movie, not only is it summarizes those other films, and it just tells everything I want to. As I watch it, it's almost like a biography of my life, because they talk to the author who wrote the novel Devil's Knot, which I read in high school, and they actually made a film out of it with that, like a pretty big name actors, called Devil's Knot, if you look it up. Henry Rollins comes on and talks about the Rise Above benefit album that he put together, with all Black Flag songs, which I owned and listened to all the time in my car.
Yeah.
And so everything that keeps going through this, I'm like, and just watching it and hearing it, and how just amazingly easy it is for a government, or let's say maybe not so much a government, but for, like the courts, to basically just put something on you. And if you're poor and you have no good defense, because their first defense, the courtroom, their defense lawyers did the best they could, but they weren't the best, right? If the prosecution wants to accuse you of something or get you for something, they can, and they will, right? Yeah. And he spent 18 years, and Damien Echols was on death row. Like, he was on his last appeal, and then they were going to kill him. And the other 2 boys had life sentences. And finally, Peter Jackson got involved, and you watch and you listen, and him and Fran were constantly writing to them, and writing to Damien. Got married while he was in prison, so he was writing to his wife, and all the money they put into this, and they hired FBI profilers, and they hired these doctors and all these people who basically, if it weren't for Peter Jackson, this is what blows my mind, I think they'd still be in prison right now, right? Because there's no DNA evidence or anything.
Dead. Yeah. And one guy dead.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
He's on death row.
And so watching that, so even if you just watch this one, you watch it and you just shake your head, and it hits me hard, because it's like, that could have been me. I listened to different music. I wore different clothes, right? If I was, you know what I mean? Like, at a different time in a different
wrong
place.
Wrong time. Yeah.
Powerful documentary. But anyways, that's why I put them together, as you can see.
Oh, that makes sense. Makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. So that's
incredible.
Yeah, obviously, I watched that. I haven't watched that one. I went and watched West of Memphis. Mike lent me those other 3, and I watched the thing. And it's crazy stuff. And so, like François was saying earlier, when we were talking about things, like, that's the power of a documentary, right? That's the power of people getting behind it, and people exposing these certain things to the light, like bringing these things to the light. Like those 3 boys, that could have gone off in obscurity. No one would have ever known if it wasn't for these documentaries and people bringing it to light for all of us to see. And I think about that like within the context of now, and you would see when things are videoed and shown within social media, how that promotes change. And we could see that with our climate right now, right? With if people don't video it and show it, and people have said it, like, these things are happening, these changes are happening, not because we saw it. We all saw it. And so like that, I think that's one of the great things about documentary is that because of these documentaries, we get to see it. We all bear witness to these injustices, to these terrible things that happen that need to have change.
And let it be said too, if you watch this, by the end, you actually know who did it. You definitely know.
Oh no, I gotta watch that now.
That's great. You have to check that out. That's perfect.
Quickly, just
like I said, I've watched his other ones.
Quickly, just run through the 4 titles of the.
Paradise Lost was the first one.
Yeah.
Paradise Lost 2 Revelations was the second one. Paradise Lost Purgatory was the third, and then West of Memphis is the one that sort of, if I said you could only do one, just do this. It's about 2 hours. They're all on Prime. This one is.
I was just gonna say. Guess what, guys? Prime.
On Prime.
Like
That's
jackpot.
great.
Like my Prime list just jumped up to like another 10 movies.
Another 10, yeah. Well, that's what I love, and I think you said it right, AB. That's a great way to end the show by saying, like, those documentaries, man, they're a reflection of life. They're a look at life. They're a look at society, and we live in a world that documents everything. And so, like we may not be noticing documentaries, or maybe we have documentary series, but we see documentation every day now, and I think that is bringing everyone closer together and adding some transparency a little bit too.
I think that's because of the effect of that documentaries over the years have had. That now that people know, and be like, we need to document this. We need to show
stuff.
We need to record stuff. We need to show the people what's going on.
Yeah, it's great, man. That was great. Some really good suggestions in there. I got like everyone's writing down some lists and making lists. Speaking of lists. Everybody in who was watching, leave us your list. What are your top 5 documentaries in the comments?
I want to add more. I want to add more now. Now I'm going to go on a kick.
We barely had any repeats. I can't imagine what everybody else wrote, right? It's going to be great. Next time on the Mack Flash 5.
You're hired.
Why did I do that voice? We're going to be doing next time. We're going to be doing it. Well, first of all, don't forget to check out the quiz about these documentaries available later today or whenever you watched it. It is available on the channel, the Mack Flash 5 documentaries quickie. And then next week, this is a good one. It's top 5 movies you can't believe we haven't seen. Which is going to be really odd to talk about because we haven't seen them. So
it's an interesting choice.
Interesting choice for that.
Yeah, hopefully they're big enough that everyone else has seen them.
We'll find out.
I haven't seen it. You haven't seen it. Wait, have you seen it? No, I haven't seen it.
Next, it's going to be the shortest show we've ever done. Speaking of which, guys, everybody say goodbye. That was the top 5 documentaries. See you later, everybody. All right, bye-bye.